It's World War III. Watch. Let's just face it. It's already started. I'm here with co-host Craig Pasta Jardula and Jay Scott. And it seems that the tune has changed as far as why we're going to be attacking Venezuela. It's not because of the drug trade. No. It's actually because of Russia, China, and Iran. So forget all that stuff you heard about the drug cartel stuff and the fentanyl. None of that really checked out anyway. So, but no, this is really the reason the whole time is to stop our big nemesis, Russia, China, and Iran. Let's hear Fox News report on this.
President Trump orders strikes against the Maduro regime. There's plenty of firepower in the Caribbean to do it, with about 30% of all deployed American warships, including the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford, now on station. There are over 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles in theater aboard destroyers and U.S. Marines aboard the USS Iwo Jima and other amphibs in the Ready Group. Now, ahead of Thanksgiving, the U.S. military's top officer, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Raisin Kane, arrived in Puerto Rico yesterday to meet the forces who are part of Operation Southern Spear. So with General Kane in the region, we'll have to see if Secretary Hegseth follows suit ahead of Thanksgiving. And one thing officials have said is some of this buildup in the Caribbean goes beyond the Maduro regime. It's about getting Russia, China, and Iran out of the Western Hemisphere, guys.
So that's how the Fox News audience is getting ready for this. They're going to forget all about that. That short-term memory is a real thing. They're no longer talking about the drug cartel situation. We have to stop our real enemies, and this is what really gets the American people manufactured consent for yet another war that we're saying could manifest itself into a World War III scenario. This other one hit, and I'm going to get you guys' feedback on this one, but this was House Rep Maria Elvira Solares. She did this this one's kind of going viral. We played it at the beginning of the show, the first half, where she talked about the oil. That's the part they can't stop talking about, which is insane to me that they can't get their talking points right on the on that part. Like let's hold off on the oil talk, but they love talking about it because it's always about showing that America is actually getting something out of it. With all said and done, we're going to benefit because we are capitalist first, and we always look for the benefit. So they can't help say that part. But here's the rest of it. We haven't played this part, but this is where she's asked the direct question: how are you going to get the American people to buy this, basically? And it's asked in like this honest way, like, we got to figure this out. What are you going to tell them? And she looks like she's having she's very excited about answering this question. Here we go.
Are some Americans, I mean, I would love to see a change in government. My wife's from Nicaragua. We know how terribly the dictators there rely on Venezuelan oil.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of Americans don't want actual U.S. participation in regime change in Venezuela. They would much prefer the Venezuelans to do it on their own. Do you think the pressure that Maduro has received will force him to leave on his own?
Oh, I think Maduro is not Fidel Castro. Maduro is not a brave boy. So now that he has understood that he's on that very nefarious list of the terrorist organization, that the airspace above Venezuela has been closed off and the commercial airlines from the United States are not flying, he's understanding that we're about to go in. He understands that he has been our enemy for the last 25 years. Venezuela, for those Americans who do not understand why we need to go in, basically for three reasons. You're in Fox business. Venezuela, for the American oil companies, will be a field day because it will be.
Gosh, you cannot stop talking about the oil, but it's a field day. Okay, go on.
More than $1 trillion in economic activity. American companies can go in and fix all the oil pipe, the whole oil rigs, and everything that has to do with the Venezuelan petroleum companies, or everything that has to do with oil and the derivatives. We're going to be doing a favor to us, to our children, to our economy, to our oil companies,
by stealing Venezuela's
and to the
resources.
Venezuelans, that they do want to be free.
Well, no doubt it's going to be good for Venezuela to
He had to remind her. He had to jump in and say, no, don't forget, it's not just about us. They want us to come in and steal all their shit too, and they're rooting for us to come in and steal all their shit. That's why Maduro is right now giving away guns freely to his population, which is what dictators are known to do. They're known to arm their populations, right? I mean, it's hilarious.
It was when they said in Iraq, we'll be greeted as liberators. Sure, we will.
Yeah, and there's hearts and minds and women and children. We've heard all of it, all the garbage. They're recycling the same old shit all over again. The only one we haven't heard is the weapons of mass destruction. But you're kind of implying that when you talk about Russia, China, Iran. Now we're thinking about what kind of devastation could happen to us if Maduro is working with them, like this big super villain, Fortress of Doom meeting they're having, going like this. We're gonna take down the West. That's the picture they're painting. Let's see if she says anything else here at the end, and then we'll talk some more.
Be rid of this guy and the regime. But again, you use the phrase when we go in. What exactly does that mean?
It's going to be very similar to Panama. That I was there. I was a news reporter, and I remember when the Marines were walking in, and the Panamanians girls were asking them to marry them. I think it's very similar. And I'm telling you that these people, the Venezuelans, have the largest reserves of oil in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We're talking about this is going to be a windfall for us when it comes to fossil fuels.
Well, and
you
again,
just said it. Cuba receives 100,000 barrels of oil for free from Venezuela just to stay alive, just to have the lights. Just to have to be able to breathe for a little while during the day, because
by the way,
Cuba has no oil.
I have to mention
that's why this will go.
Man, listen, do y'all remember the Chappelle show when they asked him who are the top 5 rappers, and he was like Dylan. They asked her, what are the top 3 reasons we should go into Venezuela? Well, oil, like money. Like it's the same shit. Like, come on, you can't think of anything else other than oil and Russia. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, there is a mindset I think that they're playing on, and this is something Nick Fuentes said at one point. It would be good for us to. That's a regime change he's worth, going in for. He said that would be a good one because they have a lot of oil. There's some type of American exceptionalism, which thinks people think that we have a right to other countries' resources, right? And this is why they paint each one of these leaders as dictators and stuff. And if people who don't know what's going on, Nicolas Maduro was hand chosen by what's his name, the Chavistas, Hugo Chavez, to be the leader.
Yeah, he was his right-hand man.
Yeah. He was a bus driver, a common man, come up from the poor. You know what I'm saying? And he's done an amazing job. I don't think he gets enough credit for the job he's been doing because they had some of the harshest sanctions out there. They survived. They're thriving now. They're starting to move in a positive way. But this is some scary stuff because at the end of the day, I don't think the West cares who wins the war. I don't think they care who loses the war. All they care is that they have the war so they can make a ton of money. So it looks like we're redirecting, as you see the 28-point plan go to 19, whatever. It looks like we're spending less time over there, and we're going to concentrate our efforts back in Latin America because there's a lot of natural resources that we don't want the Chinese and the Russians. We don't want it to slip into their hands. So there is some truth to them saying that. But the mindset of Americans thinking military action is okay to obtain our economic goals is wrong. People should be pushing for us to be more like the Chinese. Well, let's out-business them. Let's outwork them, right? If you want to take them on economically, that means we have to do better. We have to offer up better deals. You know what I'm saying? Free trade across the board, allowing them to own their resources, giving them top dollar for that oil. You know what I'm saying? Because we can still use it and still benefit from it if we would just change the way we do business. We need to change the way we do business. We can't continue to go in with a tank and a gun. We got to start emulating what the Chinese do. They come in with their engineering, their infrastructure, their help to build things. Not to say that they don't have a lot of bad stuff going on. What the Chinese are doing in the Sudan right now, really disgusting. And a lot of people aren't talking about it. But for the most part, they come in there and say, let me build you a dam. Let me build you some bridges and some roads just so we can do business together. We need to get to that type of mentality.
Yeah, and one thing I want people to know, like when they say this is going to benefit America, what they mean is this is going to benefit multinational corporations and the owners of which, some of them are based in America. But like the truth is, like Maduro had already pretty much offered up, most of what we want before, this escalation took place, because we sent over negotiators to talk with them about the oil. And he pretty much said, hey, you guys can have the 99% of what it is you're asking for. We just don't want Maduro to be kicked out of power. So it is, a money play, and it is more about making sure that there's nothing left for anyone else over there. So like the deal was that they wouldn't kick out the Russians and the Chinese, but they would let American companies come in and make a whole lot of deals. And that wasn't good enough. So I think what is going to happen, and the reason we're doing this, is because there's actually not going to be a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. That war is going to be played out until the end, and that's going to be a loss. However, Trump doesn't want to take that loss without trying to get a win, somewhere else. And I guess he figures that he'll be able to go in and, topple Maduro, which he will label a win, even though it's highly unlikely that we'll be able to stabilize another government out there unless we put a whole bunch of troops on the ground, because all the people that we're putting up, to become the replacement government, none of them are popular over there. So the only way they'll be able to rule is with an iron fist that they don't have. So they'll need America's iron fist to be the muscle for whatever government we go in to try and replace them with. Because if you look at what's going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, the truth is Russia isn't budging on their core demands. They want a promise that Ukraine will not join NATO. They don't want a large military on their borders, and they don't want all these long-range missiles and high-powered weapons over there. And, the deal, from what last I heard, doesn't address like those core concerns, though it does, have some territorial concessions. So my guess is Russia's just going to reject the deal. It's going to be a military end to the war, and that'll probably happen sometime next year. But Trump doesn't want to take that loss without getting a win somewhere else. And it just ties into the overall strategy. Like anywhere BRICS is making progress, that's where Trump wants to target. That's why he's talking about Nigeria. That's why, one of the reasons he's talking about Mexico, they flirted with the idea a little bit. So it's just, if you look at the overall strategy is fight BRICS, Russia and China with everything you can. Let's do what all empires do as they're failing. Let's overextend ourselves militarily until we go broke. And that seems to be the path we're on.
Matt, let me say this much real quickly, just to piggyback, because it's really important. I think that with Jay, wouldn't you look at this situation, if in fact they don't take this deal, it will still be a win for Donald Trump, because the Biden administration refused to even talk to Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. In this situation, Trump could say, man, we put out a 20.8 plan. We put all these things out there. We honored the fact that they can keep the Donbass. We just asked them to retract from the areas that were part of, that should be part of Ukraine. They're not the Russian-speaking parts where they're advancing. We asked just to have enough troops so they can protect themselves. There are so many things that they offered on up in that 28-point plan that even if it's rejected on its face, Donald Trump can say, look, I tried to end Biden's war. It was Biden's war. I tried to end it. It didn't work. He can still take a win for this now because he at least put that 28-point plan out there. That's at least the way I'm looking at it.
He's doing that for his base, but all the media is going to blame him. Like, that's what the media does. It's blame all of the problems on Trump. Anything that goes wrong whenever he's in power, we're going to put the blame on Trump. So my guess is the narrative moving forward after Ukraine loses is, well, they would have won if it wasn't for Trump, who just wouldn't give Ukraine what they needed.
They wanted,
Trump's base is going to, highlight exactly what you just talked about. Oh, Trump did everything he could. He really wanted peace, but, the crazy Russians, they just wouldn't accept it. And maybe they're hoping that'll turn more of MAGA against Russia to try to make Russia look like the bad guys. That's my guess.
Yeah. Well, I think timing is everything. And I think you're right, Jay, about there's a rhythm to what Trump is doing as far as hold off here, emphasize here, distract over there. But at the end of the day, we know that he's able to turn losses into wins just by how he presents. So I don't think these two are fully connected at the hip, the Russia, Ukraine versus how we're going about Venezuela. I think they're independently going to go the way they're going to go, but timing will allow him to create different narratives at different points in time where he can trick his base, trick the media. Well, it's not about tricking the media, but it's about getting them coordinated and getting their talking points ready for each network and their particular demographic it's watching. As we know, a particular demographic watches the Fox News reports. So there's a certain narrative going on now, which is distracting from what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. now that we know this plan's not going to be taken, it's going to drag on and on. But in the meantime, we can take a win just how he steers it. And so right now, I do think we are going to make the military move. We've already surrounded the Caribbean. We got all of our weapons ready to go. We're there. And like you said about Maduro giving out weapons to his people, this is going down. Like, I think in the next week, I think within the next week, this thing's going down. And we know we have people there. We've been coordinating with, talking with, that are on the ground, seeing this happen. There's there's this little calm before the storm happening right now. And so we'll keep reporting on this. But I got to say, like, the idea, I don't know if you guys know this, the idea to go down there and cover this came up with me. And I was on the fence. We were talking to some of our colleagues, TRT World, also RT, and just kind of figuring out ways to coordinate sharing, resources and opportunities. Another opportunity came up about making another documentary, because we have our one we made a few years ago, and to go down and do this. And I've been considering it, but on one hand, it's like, go get the story. We have ways to do that. On another hand, oh my God, they could annihilate Caracas. And do we really want to be there when that happens? I mean, we always operate in this space with courage first, and we tell our audience courage first. And so I'd be willing to do that, but man, it's there's a lot on the line here. And I think this one is certainly, and I could be wrong, but I feel like we're about a week away from an actual military attack.
Yeah, on that point, someone was mentioning in Twitter Spaces earlier today, apparently once the government makes a strike, takes a strike somewhere, there's like a 60-day clock that starts up. And, long story short, we've been bombing boats in the Caribbean for nearly 60 days. So if they don't make a move, I believe the guy was saying by December 1st, then they would need to get congressional approval, which would then mean you couldn't put all the blame on Trump for whatever happens.
Right.
And Trump is only here for 3 more years at this point. So if it does go wrong, which it more than likely will, it will go wrong. When it goes wrong, they'll be able to put all the blame on Trump. But if it goes to congressional approval, that means every single person who voted in favor of it could be held accountable for what happened. So you could be right about that timeline. And again, I hope not, because again, all the people who are cheering this on, Nick Fuentes, he doesn't want Venezuelans coming into this country. But what do you think is going to happen if we go destroy their country? They're going to try everything they can to get out of there, and America will be one of the places they choose to go to, and probably a lot of them will want to go here. So
and for more historical context on the idea that we have refugees from Venezuela, we've been the amount of people that have moved out of there, just even at the 10 years ago when we were starting our film, and we saw that there were 4 million, that we'd already driven 4 million out at that point. Now there's an additional 6-7 million. So we're talking about in the last 10 years, we're close to 11 million that have been driven out. How many more are going to be driven out after an attack? And where do you think they are going? Where do you think they're going to? This is the part, and you're right about the right needing to understand this. This is the opposite way you solve immigration, the exact opposite. Yeah. And so we keep doing this, and we need to start educating these people, not necessarily Nick Fuentes himself, but there's certainly people confused that are watching. We need to say, hey, come on over here to our space. We'll tell you exactly what's going on. We've been consistent about this. We don't care left, right. We don't care where you are. But if you are having a hard time understanding this, we will tell you that we create this every effing time with our CIA operations, with our ability to destroy economies on purpose, to sanction the crap out of these people, so they have no choice but to leave. Why? So we can demonstrate to the American people in the rest of the West that socialism and communism bad, capitalism good. Watch it all fail all the time. Well, it's because we push it to fail. So here we are. Now, the sentiment on the ground, I'll just say this, the sentiment on the ground, that's a hard one to figure out right now, because on one hand, you have Maria Coronavirus Machado telling us that 90% of Venezuelans want U.S. intervention. That's a lie. That's not true. If you could fake a poll there about them wanting change, you might be able to get 90% to say something needs to change. But if you steer that question and pretend that means a foreign country coming in with the history that we have of destroying and annihilating countries, that number is wrong. And we know that's wrong. However, there are people that feel desperate. They're part of this other side. It's called the opposition, and they're kind of packaged as the resistance movement when they're really the high up movement, talking down to the Chavistas on the ground. Those are the ones, those are the people, the Chavistas and their factions, and all of the ones getting the guns right now. There's hundreds of thousands more of them. And we'll see if Maduro, what he's claiming, hundreds of thousands ready to take it to the street, we'll see if those numbers line up. But that's where we're at. So I think it's hard to get the exact percentage, but make no mistake, we're packaging the same argument as you guys heard earlier. We obviously we do the same thing everywhere we go. We figure out the little taglines, and if one's not working, we just change it. If the drug cartel thing ain't working, we'll change it to Russia, China, Iran. That's what we do. We just keep changing the thing.
And what people don't realize is Venezuela is a very, mountainous country with a lot of jungles and all that. So guerrilla warfare over there is going to be a lot harder than it was in Iraq, which we also lost. So, we lost Vietnam, we lost Iraq. If we go into Venezuela in the long run, it'll be a loss, even if we do, topple the government, which honestly, I hope it doesn't happen. But if we go in there with full force, it's hard for me to imagine Maduro not getting toppled at some point.